Hi, I'm Steve Brier. I'm a faculty member in the Urban Education PhD program and in the master's program in digital humanities at the CUNY Graduate Center. I'm also the lead historian and project director of the CUNY Digital History Archive, which is an archive that I and my colleagues here at the Graduate Center at the American Social History Project and at the New Media Lab created more than a half a dozen years ago to respond to a very real need within our institution, which essentially was that our overall institution, the City University of New York, the third largest public university system in the United States with 25 campuses within the 5 boroughs of New York City, did not have an institutional archive. It lacked any kind of physical or digital infrastructure to record and preserve the records, the very important records of the history of our institution. CUNY was founded in 1961 by the state legislature. It was preceded by more than a century, actually, by a number of senior colleges of great fame and importance, City College, Hunter College, Brooklyn, and Queens colleges, which have substantial archives, but CUNY as an institution did not. And what we realized, my colleagues and I at the American Social History Project, was that if we did not make an effort to preserve and collect the stories of the history of CUNY from its founding in 1961, that knowledge would be lost forever. And so what we essentially did was create the infrastructure to produce the CUNY Digital History Archive, which is an open, participatory, democratic archive in which faculty, students, staff, and alumni actively engage to create and develop collections on a variety of themes and events within the history of CUNY over the last 60 years. We've been very fortunate to have some support, but in effect, when you're trying to build a project like this, it's really a lot of people's time and energy being contributed. And we've been fortunate to have a strong influx of students and faculty and staff who are committed to the idea of the CUNY Digital History Archive. My colleague, Chloe Smolarski, who's the project coordinator, will now demonstrate the CDHA to give you a sense of what it looks like as a piece of infrastructure.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Steve. Again, I'm Chloe Smolarski, and I am the Project and Collections Manager. So this is our site. Give it a moment, if you can see it here. It is built on the Omeka platform, which is open source. And was developed by some people at the George Mason University Center for History and New Media. One thing that's always been really important to us is being able to offer a significant amount of context to the items that we are featuring. So we do have time periods that are essentially an ecosystem particular to CUNY and offer histories that were written by our chief historian, Steve, who just spoke. We have multiple ways of entering the collections as well, or by subject, by item, by collection. One of the most exciting things about the CUNY Digital Archive, History Archive, and how it's developed throughout the years is we've really been able to work with student activists and CUNY scholars who have been part of particular movements and are choosing the actual items and framing the story from their own perspective. So just very briefly, the fight for Asian American Studies at Hunter was spearheaded by a student who was part of that department and later went on to actually fight for it. So with that, we're really excited to be working with the CUNY Distance Learning Archive folks and team, and think that their collection is gonna add a lot. So I'm gonna just hand it over to Matt.
Thank you, Chloe. So my name is Matt Gold. I am a faculty member in English and Digital Humanities at the CUNY Graduate Center. And in spring 2020, I was teaching a course in the PhD program in English at the Graduate Center called Knowledge Infrastructures. This is a course that was premised on an intersection between critical infrastructure studies, digital humanities, and critical university studies. So we were thinking about the infrastructure of our own public university, and I offered the class on another piece of CUNY developed infrastructure, the CUNY Academic Commons. Importantly, instead of asking students for a final individual project, I wanted to ask them to create a collective intervention in CUNY's own knowledge infrastructure. And I left it open for us to discuss during the semester. As Stefano will talk about, we had the interruption of the COVID-19 pandemic in the middle of the semester, and that very much shaped our plans moving forward.
Thank you, Matt. I'm Stefano Morello. I'm a PhD candidate in English and a digital fellow at the Graduate Center. And I was auditing Matt's class in the spring of 2020. And the news of the switch to distance learning broke just a few minutes before our last in-person class of the semester. And after that, we unanimously decided that our final project would have to be related to the unique moment that we were experiencing as students and educators. The CUNY Distance Learning Archive was then developed as a crowdsourced repository that allowed different CUNY constituencies to submit personal narratives, emails, and communications related to the shift to distance learning. We also scraped the web to preserve social media posts and reactions of the CUNY community to both the health crisis and the shift to remote learning. We quickly began to collect material under pressure of the need to capture the moment, and without fully knowing yet how the material will be displayed to the public. It was only in the fall of 2020 that we partnered with the CDHA team to create a public-facing exhibition using the items that we had collected. We have since been working together to curate a digital exhibition that focuses primarily on 3 narrative threads that highlight some challenges common across the 25 CUNY campuses starting in March of 2020. Travis, Zach, and Nicole, who are also PhD students in English and team members of the CDLA, will now introduce you to each of these threads.
Thanks, Stefano. I'm Travis. I'm one of the developers of the CDLA project. In starting the CDLA, we decided to begin our scope at the very beginning of the shutdown. In our curated materials, we have tried to strike a balance. On one hand, we are focused on testaments of historical record, just simple facts, simple archival materials that just help show what occurred. A digital visitor will find a collection of official documentation, among them being Governor Cuomo's official tweet calling for the university's closure and administrative guidelines regarding the transition to online teaching. But on the other hand, we have also sought out that which is kind of often neglected when considering infrastructure, but never really by the infrastructure itself: affect. Events are significant only to the lives that experience them. And while the closure of CUNY was drastic, it's honestly meaningless absent the human artifacts that help contextualize it. Angry social media threads criticizing administrative latency, derisive online comments mocking pandemic response efforts, 9 incomprehensible rants regarding academic expectations, and heartbreaking admissions of powerlessness against the twin forces of public responsibility and marginalization. Like other archives, we have sought to preserve that ephemeral notion of truth that is so crucial to our understanding of history. But as a humans project, we have also sought to encapsulate the subjectivities that are so crucial to understanding that history.
Thanks, Travis. So the CDLA's teaching and learning collection offers an additional record or trace of remote teaching and learning practices throughout the CUNY system during the COVID-19 pandemic, beginning with the March 2020 shutdown and ending with the close of the fall 2020 semester. This collection joins together an array of artifacts from multiple sites and scales of experience in relation to CUNY's online learning infrastructure. Our curatorial efforts in this respect aim to surface as well as preserve the affective, locally situated experiences of students, faculty, and staff throughout the university. Toward these ends, the collection features educational perspectives that range from campus-based guidance and support documentation to class projects and community petitions to personal reflections and various social media artifacts. Whether typified by CUNY senior administrators or bands of student Redditors, the integrated value of these artifactual materials really rests in their potential to inform our historical memory and our future as a public institution of higher education. And with that, I'll hand it off to Nicole to discuss our third and final collection.
Thanks, Zach. And finally, the CDLA's Cut COVID Not CUNY collection aims to document the fight against austerity politics during the COVID pandemic. It includes responses to the native to the CUNY community, those from social media in particular, but also widely circulated articles and material generated from faculty, staff, students, and rank and file activists at CUNY, as well as demonstrations of support by government officials and public advocates in favor of funding CUNY, as the institution itself is a critical infrastructure for the city of New York. These moments will be preserved in the CDLA, itself a form of knowledge infrastructure for CUNY, to retain them in our collective institutional memory. Therefore, this collection in particular, and perhaps the CDLA more broadly, hopes to act as a preemptive measure against neoliberal master narratives by serving to inform, animate, and mobilize our community and remind us of CUNY's pushback against austerity in this moment. Overall, thank you for your interest in the CUNY Digital History Archive, and we anticipate releasing the CDLA exhibit by fall 2021 and hope you will check it out then.